Welcome to this new video where we are going to check whether my voice can cover the sound of the waves. This video is in continuity to the previous one that was about the nature, the identity of our sun. And I had said in my previous video that there had been many attempts to take over our sun, to conquer it. And someone posted a comment saying, wow, I had never heard about that. They really are. They're incredible. They're trying to conquer the sun. And I want to elaborate on that. I want to give some examples of how that could possibly be done. As I said, there were many attempts. And the one attempt is not a direct one. It's not a material one either. It is rather done through an attempt to influence our perception of the sun. Well, last week I mentioned the sort of propaganda war on the sun to convince you that it is very dangerous to your health. But I'm speaking about something more esoteric here, because there are many texts, esoteric texts and occultist texts and channeled material as well, that will try to convince you that the planet Saturn is like a better sun, that it is a more spiritual, a more elevated, a loftier sun. So if you need some heat and light to help grow your veggies, well, you can rely on the visible sun for that, you know, for the mundane stuff. But when it comes to the sublime stuff, then Saturn is your guy, right? Sure. If planets and stars are conscious beings, if they have a spirit and a consciousness and an individuality, then in addition to asking ourselves who is the sun, we could also ask ourselves who is Saturn. Well, you know, artists, they are like antennae, they're very sensitive antennae, and they can pick up a lot of truth, a lot of deep relevant information that they translate, for instance, in their fictional work. So I would like to draw your attention on a very, very famous book that was adapted in a trilogy of very, very famous films, J.R.R. Tolkien's The Lord of the Rings. Think of the rings of Saturn and ask yourself, who's the Lord of the Rings? Who's the Lord of these rings that were created in order to deceive and enslave? Think about it. I think I've said enough for today. By the way, these rings of Saturn, they're not natural. They're not natural. They were artificially created. And okay, I must really say something about the creator of the rings in Lord of the Rings. Because again, who's the Lord of the Rings? Is it some big guy in an armor? Is it some fiery eye on top of a tower, a medieval tower? Well, if you want to talk about fiery eyes, there are another very interesting fact about Saturn, which is that the poles of Saturn are really very, very, very interesting. The North Pole of Saturn, there is a permanent, never-ending storm there, and that storm draws a pattern of a perfect geometric hexagon shape. Do you know many natural phenomena that produce perfect geometric shapes? Not approximate quasi-geometric shapes, perfect ones, perfectly abstract geometric shapes. So that's the North Pole. But the South Pole of Saturn, there's another storm there. And that one, the pattern it draws is an eye. Yeah, looks like an eye. So there have been much more direct approaches to try and take over our star. And if you don't know the levels of technologies that some extraterrestrial civilizations are able to deploy, that might sound completely an outrageous idea, completely delusional. Well, have you ever heard of Dyson spheres? So the Dyson sphere is a concept that was theorized by a physician called, of course, Dyson. It was the idea that structures could be created around a star to harvest the energy of that star, and that the most complete or perfected version of such a structure would be encapsulating the star entirely. And according to that theory, a planetary civilization that would have reached a certain level of technological development, that is typically what they would do. They would endeavor to harvest the entirety of the energy available in that solar system. Now, that's a really silly way of doing it. It's really stupid to operate in such a way, because zero-point energy is available everywhere, and it is absolutely massive. So you definitely don't need to go build absolutely ridiculous structures around the star in order to do that. But that doesn't mean nobody's ever done it. Because if you can think of something, anything, you can be pretty sure that it exists somewhere in the cosmos. And there are forces that have a very, very distorted, extremely distorted approach of life. And to these forces, the idea of asserting their will upon a star would be very appealing in their hubris, in their insanity, in their relentless urge to conquer and assert their will on reality, on nature, on creation. Absolutely, they would go for it. they would go for it, and they do. They do. So, yeah, to some, conquering a star is a worthy endeavor. Trying to conquer our star, not gonna succeed. For the reason I explained in the previous video. That is absolutely doomed to fail. There was a recent attempt, and when I say recent, it really was in recent years, not to take control of the sun directly, but to control the relationship between the sun and planet Earth. And no, that wasn't done via chemtrails, that was done via much more sophisticated and powerful technology. And I guess some of you have heard about the beings who were presented at some point under the name the Sphere Being Alliance. And that is what I'm talking about. I'm talking about the Sphere Being Alliance here, and what they tried to do in our solar system. And if you're familiar with the story, you might say, yeah, but wait a minute, these are the good guys. Huh? Are they? Are they the good guys? So, for those of you who've never heard of the Sphere Being Alliance, their operation in our solar system was presented to us by a man named Corey Good, an American man, who had been enlisted in the secret space, one of the American secret space programs. And his memories of that whole period of his life had been suppressed, had been mind wiped, which is a very common process, exactly like you see in the Men in Black movies. Lots of soft disclosure in these movies, and in most science fiction movies. So at some point he started to recover his memories, and he disclosed a lot of information about the secret space programs that were very valuable and very accurate. But all that information was meant to progressively lead to the introduction to the 5 races, if I remember correctly, making up that Sphere Being Alliance. And what these guys were doing was that they had placed absolutely gigantic spheres all over the solar system. Many of these spheres were the size of planets. And the purpose of these spheres, as they were presenting it, was to modulate the impact of the energies coming from the sun on humanity. Because their argument was, if we were not doing that, you guys, you couldn't stand you couldn't stand what is emanating from the sun, you would fall apart, and that would be a very regrettable outcome, because you would miss this crucial evolutionary step that is currently manageable for you. So we, wise ones, authoritative ones, are going to modulate the sun radiation and all of the energies that the sun is emanating in order to protect you. And when we consider that the time has come, that you have reached the proper level of development, then we will withdraw the spheres and you will receive the full impact of the sun's activity. And they were presenting that as the solar flash. The solar flash that would change things here forever. That would bring powerful spiritual awakening and shutting down of the control structures. That sounds pretty good, doesn't it? Except if you are aware of who and what our sun truly is. Because these beings, what their foundational argument was, not expressed in these terms of course, but it was obviously implied, was that the sun wasn't able to modulate the energies it emanates by itself. That somehow the sun wasn't skilled enough or conscious enough or knowledgeable enough to manage its own output, his own output. Can you see the arrogance? Can you see the incredible level of delusional arrogance? And some said that these races, the most, how would I say, the most publicly vocal of them were a blue avian race. They were the ones communicating to Corey Good. But many people said these guys don't exist. Either he made it up or he's being manipulated, but these guys, they don't exist. Whether that specific race of beings exists or not, and there are evolved avian races out there, but whether these specific blue avians exist or not, that operation of the Sphere Being Alliance interfering with our relationship with the sun was absolutely true. It really did happen. It did. And at some point there was a shift in the narrative, because Corey Good saw at some point that the sphere was starting to fade. They were starting to disappear. And the Sphere Being Alliance told him, yeah, we are doing that. We are doing that because we have assessed that you have reached a proper level of development, you Earth humans, woohoo! So we are progressively decreasing the presence of the spheres. Except that is not what happened at all. That is not what happened at all. What happened was that the beings who have the real authority, the deepest, most substantial levels of authority, intervened and made it stop. The beings from the natural order of life in this universe. Because I can assure you that beings who interfere in the relationship between a star and those who live in that star system, they are part of the imperial structure of synthetic light. Because these are typically imperial methods. And pretty impressive technology, I have to say, and pretty impressive resources. That was, we can say without much risk to be proven wrong, was the very best technology that the Empire can deploy through that one faction, because the Empire is composed of a multitude of factions. The very best. The very best. But once the sun decided that it had had enough of that nonsense, that it was time to put an end to it, the beings who are in direct relationship with the spirit and consciousness of the sun stepped in, and they simply moved the spheres away easily. They didn't need to be belligerent about it. They didn't need to attack them. They didn't need to put up a show. No. Because when you are a creator being, a true creator being, when you are part of the creational team TEAM, the creator group, the prime creator group of a reality, then your energy is embedded in the very building blocks of that reality. So your relationship is deep enough that you can assert your will on that reality, not in a conquering way, not in an aggressive way, but with ease. With ease and in perfect cooperation. In perfect cooperation with life. In perfect alignment with the fields of intention that are the origin of the unfoldment of reality. And so that's what happened. The spheres were just moved away. They were relocated gently, gracefully and efficiently. So yeah, so these are the examples I wanted to share with you to give you a better grasp on the shenanigans, the shenanigans that happen in the denser dimensions of life in this universe that George Cavassalas calls the Great Cosmic Arena, or the Grand Cosmic Arena, not sure. Never a dull moment. Never a dull moment, and yet there are some delusional beings around that have tried to conquer the sun, and that have tried or done the same in many other star systems. So there you have it. That's all for today. I'll see you in another video. In the meantime, I would very much appreciate it if you would like, share, subscribe, comment, because it is very helpful to give visibility to this channel if you find that this information is valuable, and that it would be a good thing that other people would be exposed to it. Then you know what to do. In the meantime, take care. All the best.